Well, we're very fortunate today. We've got someone with us that everyone will recognize in the community because if you've been here for any part of the last 30 years, you will know Mitchel Sommers, and we're just glad to have him. And I'm happy to be able to be sitting here with him today because he's got some great news for us, and where he's landed is somewhere new to him and new to the community, and I think the story will be one we'll revisit again very soon. Where are you now, Mitchel? Huh?
I'm still sitting on my back porch in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, the rest of the day is gone. My mom, may she rest in peace. I don't know if you remember.
I remember.
She died during COVID.
Yeah.
It was very heartbreaking. I couldn't be with her. You know, anybody who lost someone during COVID, it was just tragic.
But I also remember you going to the nursing home window and singing to her.
That's right. That's right. So when she was at the end, I got to be with her. She left me a little money, and I built this screen back porch. John.
So Southern.
I love it. And then whenever I'm out, they have Mom's picture sitting there, and it's a great. But after I have my coffee and I sit on the porch. So I got a call about a month ago. Actually, it was 3 months ago. It took a couple of months for it to come together. So it's really 3 months ago from some of the leadership at Triad Stage.
Okay.
And they are looking for a full-time executive director, but they really realized they needed somebody now since they were reopening. And I have to start saying they, I have to start saying we. I have to keep correcting myself. So they asked me about stepping in as interim executive director. I started August 1st, and I'm really loving it. I'm really loving it. And it's so interesting how you and I were talking before the show that, you know, I was very open when I was the executive director of CTG of things that I liked about Triad Stage and things I objected to.
Right.
And so it's very rejuvenating for me to be in there and be at a place in my life where I'm not living in where I was jealous or I resented, or now I'm like, you love theater, you love this community, you have a lifetime of experience, share the knowledge that you have and help any way that you can.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, let me ask you this, because I know in its beginnings, Triad Stage was brought in professional actors, and it was a for-profit type umbrella. Or how has that changed, and what is the current makeup as far as whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit entity?
It's a nonprofit organization, but it is a professional theater.
Okay.
So you can have that status. So I believe we're a 501c3, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I'm still learning all the ropes, but I think that's so. You know, it's almost in a way, John, that Triad Stage, we're back to where we started, because the original concept, if you remember, was doing original plays featuring North Carolina playwrights and actors and designers. And then as the years went on, I think Triad Stage started to realize it doesn't quite work financially. You got to get some other things in there. So if you remember, they started doing things that were a little more popular. Yeah. They did that summer that I really loved when we worked with UNCG. Do you remember?
Yes.
I think Sunday in the Park with George, South Pacific, Sweeney Todd. That was wonderful. So it's almost like I'm feeling like we're back to the beginning, where it's sort of this renewed vision, but back to that original concept of staying focused on telling the stories of North Carolina people. Where the world has changed is theater has changed. Like, I went up to New York recently with my kids. I don't know if you know this, but I want your viewers to know that Jared Grimes, who grew up in High Point, who was one of my little stars at CTG, he was an amazing tap dancer. Wow. So there were 5 or 6 years when we did The Wizard of Oz. You know that scene at the beginning of Act 2 where the musicians come out? Right. I had Jared come out, and he just would get out there. By the time he was done tap dancing, the audience was just screaming for him. So he went up to New York, and right now he's playing the second lead in Funny Girl on Broadway with Mitchel from Glee. Wow. And I went up to see him. He got nominated for the Tonys. Wow. So I went up to see him, and he was as sweet as he could be. Yeah. It was just wonderful seeing him. But so why did I go off on that? Oh, I remember. So while I was up there, I saw A Strange Loop, which won the Tony Award. And it was a very bold show about a black gay guy, and he tells his life story, how his black church responded to him coming out, how his very conservative religious parents respond, how the gay community, it was a fascinating play. And then I had another student who's starring at the Roundabout called, I think, How Will This End? It was a fascinating play. 3 generations of men, black men, all gay, the grandfather, the son, and the grandson all come out to be gay. But what was interesting about it is the grandson, who's Gerald, who I knew, he worked for me at CTG, he tells his father that he's gay. Well, the father's gay. So I said, well, that's fine with me. I'm cool. He says, so this son says, can I bring home my boyfriend? I'd like you to meet him. He says, of course. So he brings home the boyfriend, but the boyfriend's gender fluid. So he shows up. He's got blonde hair. He's wearing fishnet stockings. He's got heels. And there was this fascinating dialogue between the black father and the black son of, I'm cool about you being gay, but I'm really having trouble wrapping myself around that you're interested in with a guy who wears fishnet stockings. So this is theater. So Triad Stage's mission of getting even more focused on telling stories about people of color, people with disabilities, women, LGBT, it's very progressive and it's very now. And so it's sort of like how it started, but the stories are becoming more intimate, more diverse. And that's the new mission.
Wow.
Renewed. We're calling it Renewed. I had an interesting talk. I hope he doesn't want me quoting him, but I met with Walker Sanders from the Community Foundation to get his read as we're reopening, and he was very supportive, very lovely. And he said to me, don't say new. He said, use the word renewed, because we don't want to negate the 20 years that Triad Stage has done wonderful work in the community, right? So it continues versus you throw away the old and let's look at the new.
Well, and that's very much the position we're in here, because we're coming from a time period that we had one person at the helm for 20-some years. And now there's new blood, so obviously there's new ideas. But we cannot negate all the great things that happen here.
That's right.
But when we were talking before the show here, I was remarking about all the people in the community that had gone through The Wizard of Oz, and that would be my 2 children and lots of their friends, and how much it meant to them, and how at the time when you were at CTG, they didn't realize the impact of having a blind coroner or a black Dorothy or a handicapped person in a wheelchair as a munchkin. But that's what they think about today when I talk to them. And so you had an impact there that transcends what, as a parent, I would have thought theater would have meant to them, and I can just see you doing the same thing at Triad Stage.
Very much so, very much so. It's so empowering in theater to be inclusive. And now I'm really reaping the benefits. I go up to New York. One of my students is starring on Broadway. Last year when we did Wizard, I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, I don't know if you remember me, Mr. Mitchell, but I was a munchkin. And I'm talking to this 35-year-old woman, and she said, here are my children. Yeah. And I even had a few families this year that the parent was in it, and they were in it when they were a munchkin, and now they're in it with their child who's a munchkin. I mean, in this world where we're all running in 5,000, you remember, and Cynthia were very involved, and to be there with your children and experience it as a family, it's a lifetime memory.
And I can remember so well the way, because of the time of year when you would run that, I remember the way I felt. I remember the crisp air in November. I remember, not just, when I think about it, it takes me back to sights and sounds of that time period.
Yes.
And
I felt like I was dead. 1 year during the pandemic, we didn't do Wizard. We were all hiding in our houses.
Yeah.
That was a very strange time for me because 25 years, my fall was The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And it was so exciting last year to do it, even though we had kids in masks and it was still precarious time. But yes, I'm very excited to be at Tri-State. Just like you said here with your show, it's kind of like a clean slate.
yeah,
Right?
you've got a clean palette, and you are going to paint things now that most of us probably haven't even thought of. And that's the beauty of having you come in, because even with your time between CTG and this, you've had time to think about things that you would do if you could do it over or whatever.
For sure.
And they're going to be the beneficiary of it.
Well,
because
thank you for saying that.
I also, my dad used to tell my brother and I that the young person knows the rules, but the older person knows the exceptions. And you can read rules in a book, but you can't read exceptions. And I think you know that. You know it about the community, you know it about fundraising in the community, and you also know what works and doesn't work on that stage.
So it's also wonderful, John, as you know, when you get to be my age, all those insecurities that you had my early years of community theater, maybe I shouldn't say that, or is that the right thing to do, or I see it clearly, but and now I'm like, oh, you know, I know how to say things gently. You know me.
Yeah.
I'm not an abrasive person, but I'm much more liberated now to say the truth as I see it, and know that that's the right. A lot of times in my life, I don't say something, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, I don't want to rock the boat.
Right.
But that's why Tri-Stage hired me. They want me to rock the boat. They want me to say it as I see it. And I see a future for Tri-Stage, but there's definitely some changes that need to be made. But I hope it works out. I mean, it's a gorgeous theater that has done beautiful shows in the heart of downtown. I love this renewed vision. We just have to figure out how to make it work financially and get the community back engaged.
Right.
Believe it or not, people always told me that, you know, I was a great fundraiser. It was very difficult for me. You know, I came from a very poor family. We never asked, we never borrowed. And so, you know, when I sat down with the Cohn family, I'll never forget it. Sitting there, may he rest in peace, Bob Cohn. I think Herman was gone, but Barbara was there. The whole Sally, who was my co-chair, they were all there. We asked for $250,000. I couldn't even get the word out of my mouth. I mean, I used to sweat to ask my mother for 5 cents to go to the movies, you know. But when we got that first lead gift from the Cohn family, I was like, wow. And I remember I asked Sally and Barbara and Bob and Tom, I asked, why did you do it? Because their kids were really not all that involved. They did like one show or something. But what you talked about before, they admired that. They go to a show and there was a child with Down syndrome, and there was a blind child, and there was a child in a wheelchair, and there was a black child, and there was an Asian child, and that impressed them so much. And I just did it because that's what you do. The best person who walks through the door gets the part. And show you how we evolve. I don't know if you knew this. The very first year we did The Wizard of Oz, 27 years ago, there was this gorgeous, talented Asian woman who auditioned for Dorothy, and it was against her. In those days, we didn't double cast. Now we do, so I was looking for one Dorothy and this very talented white girl. And I'll say it to all of your viewers, I chose the white girl even though they were equally talented because I was afraid that the community would not accept an Asian Dorothy, you know. And then I evolved, and then it was like, are you crazy? And so, you know, we've had Asian Dorothys, we've had Latina Dorothys, we had black Dorothys where I would get calls every day at the office. I want my money back. I want to know what performances the black Dorothy is performing because I'm not going to bring... This is what I had to deal with every day.
I remember when I first walked in to Tri-Stage, and, you know, the first thought through my head, first of all, it was very compact, and it seemed like you were, and it was intimate to the stage. But then the thought goes through your head that this is a smaller area to work with. Then I went to several other plays that were done there, and the way the blocking and everything was done, it was just incredible. You really, they have something special just in the building alone.
Oh yes. I love doing theater in the thrust. You know, you have people on 3 sides.
Yes.
It's so there's everybody is intimate. As an actor and a director, like when I directed The Barn, it's challenging directing in the round or three-quarter round, but it's also very engaging because you're very close.
Right.
I love this space. I mean, every time I've gone to see a show there before I started working for Tri-Stage, always very impressed with the sets and the costumes and the setting. It's a beautiful theater. I don't know if everyone knows, it used to be the Montgomery Ward.
Yeah.
You probably remember. Yeah. And it's cavernous. I didn't realize that. I'm just coming and I'm watching the theater, but now that I'm working there, the other day I took a flashlight and I said, "You're going to walk through the whole building," and at the end I was like, OMG. It's a lot. It's a big building.
And when you go to a performance there and you park in the deck, and you depend on those signs to tell you where to go, because otherwise you're like, where am I?
I didn't even know that entrance was there. Now that I'm working there's this awning.
Oh
entrance.
You just come right, from the parking deck.
I had no idea
up
that
to
existed.
And it's the only way. Actually, I have been in the front door one time, but
so you always
come from the parking deck.
Okay, gotcha.
Because you got to park, and they made it so easy. And if it was bad weather, you were still able to just go right in the building from the parking deck, and you'd had no weather other than cold or hot to worry about. No falling weather anyway. Well, I think too about the vision that they had in the beginning, and it being professional theater. How much room is there for local people to get involved?
There is room, and one of the biggest honors I always had at CTG was Rich would call me up, Rich Whittington, and he would say, "We're putting on Christmas Carol. I know you have very talented kids. Can you recommend a boy of 8 and a girl of 12? Or we're putting on whatever play, and can you recommend some children for us?" Right. So I've had many kids who ended up having a professional. Now they're not equity, but they still get paid, and they get a professional experience. So for a lot of our actors, it has become a stepping stone, and it is thrilling. I mean, it is very different than Tanger. People are asking me, well, why do we need Tri-Stage now that we have Tanger? And there is a difference, right? We're going to Tanger, sitting with thousands of people to see an amazing Broadway tour, but this is something that's mounted here using many cases local artists, and it's a smaller space, and what we're presenting there is very different than what's being done at Tanger. I'm glad you said that. The world has shifted. Things have changed. We know that, right? We have been around. People are treating each other differently. I'm even noticing at Elon. A lot of my students is wonderful. A lot of them are struggling. You're 18 years old and you're in the middle of this craziness going on. And there's still such an incredible value to coming together as a community for 2 hours to sit together, experience something live, right? All of this and all of this and all of this and all of this. Put it away. When students walk into my acting class at Elon, put the phone away. And they think I'm stupid. They're giving me this and they're giving me. Put the phone away, and have a real live experience. How unusual, John.
Unbelievable.
Let's talk to each other. Let's look at each other. Let's express our feelings to each other.
But I can't think of a better metaphor for you than the back porch, because that porch, when you're sitting there, you've got screen on at least 3 sides.
Yes.
And it's much like the stage.
That's interesting.
So you're sitting back there on that porch and
watching the show around.
The show going on there. And if you have a neighborhood like mine, I'm sure the show sometimes gets a little more interesting than you'd like.
From what I observed when I went, because I saw several shows there, it was mostly older white people. And so I have definitely felt from my short time there and seeing the new renewed vision that Tri-Stage eventually became very aware of that and really wants to change it. So I know a lot of this renewed vision has to do with we need to tell stories about people of color so people of color will come. We need to tell stories about LGBT so young LGBT people will be comfortable coming to the theater. So I feel like we're really making an effort to do that. It's CTG. It came a little easier because our ticket prices are cheaper, which makes it available to people who are from underserved neighborhoods. And early on, it was just a certain philosophy. I can't speak for Rich and Preston. I don't know what was in their head, but it felt like it was more of a white organization.
Yeah.
We're at CTG, like we never have to work anymore about getting people of color to come. They just come because they know whoever's good for the part gets the part. So I feel Tri-Stage, we're needing to make an extra effort to get that message out there, but I've noticed the color of the board is starting to change.
Yeah.
I would love to see some staff people eventually come on who represent the community more, and the plays that are being chosen. So to answer your question, of course, I want us to continue to keep the very devoted middle-aged and older community, but I think it's time to attract younger people. We're struggling with it. No matter, it's not just Tri-Stage. We're struggling getting younger people because younger people only know virtual and electronic. They don't know. Like, I had students last semester, I brought them to see Wizard of Oz. Yes, my class at Elon came to say Wizard. They said, it was so long and I was bored. I said, you're bored for 2.5 hours of watching every spectacle, but we're used to now TikTok. 15 seconds, knock me out in 50 seconds or I'm out of here.
Yeah. If the marketing was going to be more toward Guilford County, Greensboro, or for Winston-Salem, which, Winston, they do and they don't have a intimate type theater setting, and I just wondered if that would be an area you would try to draw from too, because
yes, but you may be aware that there was a while that Tri-Stage was presenting out in Winston. And so I thought, again, that was a very smart move. Part of the reason things have gotten very difficult financially is we were on tour. We had a facility out by the Coliseum for costumes and scenery. We were presenting out in Winston-Salem. So I think it's smart to kind of, especially coming out of COVID, all of us in the arts world, we need to be a little conservative and a little bit wary, right? Because we don't know yet, are people going to say, oh my God, I'm so thrilled, let's go, let's get out of this freaking house. Or after 2 years of being in the house in my pajamas, you know what, I like it and I don't feel like going anywhere and doing anything, you know. But the challenge is this, and this was something I was very critical about at CTG too, is I'm calling out right on your show that if you're watching this show and you're a woman and you are thrilled that Tri-Stage is going to present more plays, then you need to buy a season ticket and come. If you're a person of color and you're excited or feel it is important that Tri-Stage engage more of the people, then you need to come on the board, or you need to get a group of friends and come. If you're gay and you think it's awesome that we're putting on the cake, then be a sponsor of that show. And I was always very frustrated that I was always patted on the back by, good for you for doing a black show. Good for you for doing a gay musical. Good for you for doing. Well, then give me $10. Buy a ticket. Come to the fundraiser. But the pat on the back is not going to help us make it. That makes me feel good when I go home at night, but it doesn't keep the doors open. So I'm challenging. If you like these voices being heard, then you need to support those voices.
What I want to ask you,
I'm interrupting you for 1 second. I'm wearing this for you.
My girls used to go get the shoes, the Dorothy slippers at Target. And we went to New York City one time, and when they were little, and Katie insisted on wearing those. Now they're little cardboard shoes. Okay, they
Walmart $9.99.
Absolutely. And we're going up there, and finally I realized that's just a battle I didn't need to have, because she was going to wear those the entire time. And I said, you can put on your tennis shoes and they'll feel more comfortable. We're going to be doing a lot of walking. It didn't matter. Those Dorothy shoes were what mattered.
And it was funny when I put it on, I'm being real with you.
Yeah.
I said, Mitchell, you're going on John's show to talk about Try It Stage, but you're wearing the Wizard of Oz CTG. I said, that's right. That's the point,
That's
right?
it.
That I'm at a place in my life, I love CTG. I will always love it. It's my baby. It was
Yeah.
my first child.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I can't go to Try It Stage and give them my best shot while I'm there for the good of the community, for the good of arts. You know.
And I would say too that that's why people know you and love you in the community, is because of the Wizard of Oz and because of those things you did that others would never have thought about doing. And I can just see the excitement in kids that would come to have lunch with Dorothy. I mean, that was an amazing thing. And of course, with CTG, it was like, how can we raise another dollar, because it's hard enough to raise it over here. So the Lunch with Dorothy thing just expanded, and you would see kids there that were just, I mean, it was as if that was a real celebrity. And the kids with their autograph books right afterwards.
All of that. And I really feel right now with Try It Stage's renewed vision, I'm optimistic we could start creating those kind of memories there.
Maiden voyage for me too, because we are going to have some new programming that will be on this channel, and it's not going to be like you've been used to seeing. We're going to have people that will have different views, but they are represented in the community. There will be people who have ideas about the community. We're planning to film some of the candidate forums as we move into the election season. So there's going to be a lot going on here, and you're our maiden voyage. And you know, you talk about someone you can always count on to interview, and has just this font of knowledge about the community. And again, I don't think he's ever left a nickel on the table when it comes to the passion for theater. And believe me, that's what we need, passion.
My grandfather lost all of his family in the Holocaust. And when he was dying of cancer, I remember I asked him, I said, Grandpa, I said, how come you were always so loving and so positive when his mother and father and all his brothers and sisters, John, they were marched into the forest. They dug their own graves, and they were buried alive, John. They were buried alive. And I asked my grandpa, how were you? And he said, I took all that pain and all of that hurt, and I turned it into love. And so somehow that gift was passed on to me, that I had my own. My father left when I was very young, and teased at school because I was overweight and I liked theater and I wasn't good at sports, and we can go on and on. But I made fun of special needs kids when I was a kid. We called them retarded. I used to and as I grew older, I just took all of that. I said, turn that into something positive. Turn that into compassion and love and art and lifting people. And it's just been, and I love Greensboro in this area.
If we both fell down the tub tonight and died, we know how loved you are and how the community would feel such a loss. So
I got two requests.
Okay.
Everybody who's watching this needs to come see The Wizard of Oz. I will be directing it for the 27th time at the Carolina Theater. Same thing, 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. And I want everyone to come to Try It Stage to see Rebellious. It's a wonderful play. I give the staff and the board a lot of credit. Working through the pandemic is tough. Come. It's funny. It's intelligent. It's a home story. And we need to see that the community wants Try It Stage to go on.
We're good. Thank you again. And I'll say goodbye for now, but there will be a lot more coming. Thanks.